It's another fine day at Camp Dynasty. I am Counselor Austin, joined by Counselor Collin. You know, there's a lot of great pairs of things in the world. Peanut butter and jelly, popcorn and the movies. But name a better pair than the NFL draft and a plate of hot wings. You can't do it.
Salt and pepper, maybe, but that's, I mean, it's undefeated. Hot wings and football in general.
Yes.
I mean, getting out with like the guys and having a couple wings and maybe a beer or two and watching a game, watching the draft, whatever you got to do. It is magic.
So why the hell are we talking about wings? Well, if you've been here before, this will come as no surprise, but we are talking spicy draft predictions, sometimes called flavors of takes here, but maybe a little bit of a misleading title. I think we've sort of done something in the past where it was kind of this hybrid of player takes and NFL draft predictions, and that ended in all sorts of shenanigans where this was like first take on steroids.
Don't go listen to the past episodes. just please stay away. Austin went and he goes, watch the tape, see how we can get better. And I was like, oh no, what were my bad takes? And he texted me back, and you don't want to know the answer. So yeah. We're just gonna move on. Like last year never happened. I can tell you that.
Yeah, definitely do not go back and listen to last year's flavors of takes, because you will not like what you hear.
Yeah, the wings were undercooked. I'll say that.
Meaning, go listen to it right now because it's incredible 1 year later. But we are going to try to avoid some of that at least. We're going to try to take as much first take out of this as possible while still firing things up a little bit and getting a little spicy here. But in sort of celebration or getting ourselves psyched up for the NFL draft, in the context of the players that we've talked about for like 10 months at this point, because the draft's right around the corner. And these players are getting drafted in, 2 weeks, two and a half?
Yeah.
So we're going to do a little predicting in terms of what we might expect to see at the NFL draft. And that comes in numerous forms of spice. We have 6 wing flavors on the menu again this year. We have the lemon pepper, the honey barbecue, the buffalo, the Thai curry, the mango habanero, and then our own proprietary blend, the Diablo.
One of these years we'll have to do this like hot one style,
yes,
and actually eat the flavor of wings as we go along. But yeah, you picture it like the Buffalo Wild Wings sauce thing where it's like green at the top and it goes all the way down to like black, where it's like the blazing. That's basically where we're at here. We're gonna give you the easy stuff first, the easy eats, the lemon pepper, where it doesn't really have any kick at all, and then you work your way up a little bit. What's your favorite kind of wing? I think we've asked each other this before, but what's your favorite flavor?
Classic buffalo, yeah. Medium heat, just right down center of the plate, like can't miss.
Yeah, I like a garlic parm. I think that's good. I think you can't go wrong with buffalo. Like that's any day of the week you can hit buffalo, but I like garlic parm a lot.
Yeah, like you could go somewhere that has a like okay buffalo wing, but I don't think you're ever going to have a bad experience, right, unless like it's relating to the chicken.
Yeah, the chicken, yeah.
The sauce is always going to come in for you. Like it's going to come in clutch. Garlic parm, I feel like, is one of those that has really high ceiling and also a low floor sometimes.
Right. You only order the garlic parm if you know the place has good garlic parm.
Yes. But all right, let's make some predictions. And just remember also, I want to point this out, that when we get up into our upper echelon here and we start firing off some seemingly insane stuff, just remember that Michael Penix Jr. went 8th overall last year, and that could have been a Diablo take that would have got laughed at on last year's program. So
Yeah.
a lot of weird stuff, and especially in a draft like this one. So on that subject, let's start strong. Let's go in easy with a lemon pepper. Give me your lemon pepper prediction.
Okay, lemon pepper, 3 running backs in the first round. That's, I think, a take that's becoming more common. The reason it's lemon pepper is mostly because it doesn't normally happen. And it's like we come into this draft and everybody lauds the running back class and how good it is and how many guys there are. I think there's going to be 3. I'm going to leave it at lemon pepper by not saying definitively which ones it'll be, but I think we've all come to some kind of consensus that we'll see Genty, we'll see Hampton, and then like maybe Travion sneaks in, maybe Judkins sneaks in, maybe whoever, Caleb Johnson, like one of these next guys slides up into the first round. I think that's a lemon pepper enough to just say 3 running backs will find their way in. Genty pretty high, maybe Hampton in the middle, and then somebody at the end.
Yeah, I think this idea that 3 running backs could go in the first, like a couple of weeks ago, maybe like a month ago, that's kind of like, oh my God, what? That sounds nuts. I feel like we are getting to a point where it's starting to almost become, like you said, kind of like lemon peppery. Like it's, that's not to say it's a guarantee, but I think there's a lot of noise about one of these other backs, the non-Genty Hampton backs sneaking in. Travion, I think, has been the one that is talked about the most. But the other part of this, too, is there's a lot of teams, we've talked about this, at the top of the second round. I could totally see one of those teams moving in to the end of the first, end of night 1, and just grabbing their back in this class. So
absolutely,
totally see it. And I'm staying at running back with my lemon pepper take as well. This one maybe even a little light on the pepper compared to yours. But I'm saying locked and loaded, Ashton Genty is going in the top 10.
Yep, I like it. It's similar to our Bijan take of a couple of years ago now, where we're like, he's going top 8. And then he goes 8. So I think that this is right down Main Street for what we've been talking about.
Yeah, like it's getting to the point where I think most mock drafts you look at have him in the top 10. So this isn't something that seems like, very. It seems like it's going to happen at this point. But I think there's enough reason to believe with running backs that, like, a top 10 draft selection still means a lot in this day and age for a running back. So, but Genty is the sort that is well worth it, and perhaps one that is going, not even that close to number 10. But we might talk about that later.
Ooh, okay, I like it. You're gonna nail the dart on the bullseye. Right now, you're just establishing the dart board.
This is all about the long-term storytelling right now of the meal tonight. But
everyone loves a bookend.
Yes. All right, let's dial it up just a bit. Honey barbecue, you're still not getting a lot of tingle on this, but a little bit bolder of a flavor.
I'm gonna go Emeka Egbuka as the first non-Travis Hunter wide receiver taken.
Ooh.
Okay. So I'm saying that teams are going to love a guy like Emeka Egbuka. He's a very quote unquote NFL ready, like type of body, type of play style. He's got a very nuanced game where he'll find the soft spots, be a quarterback's best friend. And then he's also, he's got the CJ Stroud connection that we've been talking about. Maybe the Texans snag him. I don't know. But, like, you talk about a guy, Ohio State, another thing that is a big deal, I think, to NFL franchises maybe, where the last, you had Olave, you had Garrett Wilson, the list goes on of guys that have come out of Ohio State, Marvin Harrison Jr. last year, where they are highly touted wide receivers, and maybe they can look beyond like, no, he hasn't been like the guy on an Ohio State offense because of the fact that all these guys are so good in the league that like, well, maybe, you know, even though he was always the bridesmaid, maybe he's just like a really good time at weddings. I don't know. So here we are with Emeka Egbuka being the first non-Travis Hunter wide receiver taken.
I like it. I think I was considering doing a Emeka Egbuka is drafted before Matthew Golden take, and you've dialed that up to another notch.
He has to go before him now.
So, yeah, right. So we're saying McMillan, we're saying Golden, we're saying all these names that you've heard, Burden, and I can totally see that. And I think we have maybe, you know, a couple of places are pointing that out, like that teams really, really like Egbuka and he might go higher than you think. But yeah, I mean, so part of this conversation as well, it's not just, you know, spitting off takes here. Part of this is, what does this mean for Dynasty when it happens?
Right.
So if Emeka Egbuka is in fact the first non-Travis Hunter wide receiver taken, and let's say that happened, did you give a range on that?
I would think that he'd have to be, there's some wide receiver needy teams we've talked about with like Indianapolis at 14 could use a receiver, Arizona at 16 could use a receiver, Seattle at 18, even though they have Cooper Kupp, which I'm aware of. It wouldn't hurt. I mean, he kind of fills the same role as JSN, but like if he was the first wide receiver taken, I think he'd have to go low teens, and like it seems pretty high, but I also think like NFL teams could be higher on him than maybe we think, and also they might be lower on other guys than we think. I think that it plays another part into this take for me, where like, yeah, oh my God, Egbuka's so high, but like, I think that the people just don't believe in this wide receiver class very much, and like, you just got to get a professional that is tough and can run routes and blocks. Like, I think that's pretty good.
Yeah, but before that brings up another point I want to talk about, which is the idea that this draft class is so wide open. Like, you don't have a lot of top end talent, and you have this pretty wide like tier of guys that could go from like 15 to 45, like really almost seemingly in any order, in some cases at least. Egbuka is the sort of player that, like, if he went at, 14, then like you might sit there and be like, oh my God, what? But you wouldn't be like befuddled, or you wouldn't be like, what are they doing? So that leads me to say, if he were to go, let's just say top 18. If he were to go top 18 and he's the first guy that comes off the board, does that change things for you? Like, does Egbuka become a top 5 talent in the class, Dynasty rookie class?
It's a really interesting question, because like, say he goes like 16 to Arizona, like they could use a slot guy, they could use a big slot guy, and him and Marvin, whatever. And then, McMillan follows shortly after in Denver. It's like, it really, like, I don't think his evaluation changes a ton. It's just how much will he be utilized where he's at, it's going to matter. So like, if he goes first, but like the next guy goes a pick or two later, I don't think it changes a ton. If he's, 10 spots higher than the next guy, maybe you dive a little bit back into it and rethink, like, okay, what's going on here? Like, if he's going, 12, it's like, oh, that's pretty high for Emeka Egbuka. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's at the end of the day.
I didn't answer your question.
But I understand because it's sort of a like loaded question, because like it's always going to matter who took him and who took the other guys,
right?
And how does that all compare? I think in a vacuum, it's pretty like hard to answer the question, and it's also pretty easy to then default to, no, I don't think I'd move him, because I like these other guys more. And we're not talking about rounds of difference. We're talking about picks of difference. So, like, what does it really matter? But like you said, if he went to Arizona and McMillan ended up falling to, like, I don't know. Well, honestly, there's
There's
a lot
somebody,
of good. There's a lot
yeah.
of good wide receiver spots in there. I don't know that all those teams would take one, but like you could make arguments for any of those teams, like Seattle, Denver, Pittsburgh, Chargers, Packers. I mean, all of those teams could use a wide receiver. So I don't know. It's an interesting question, and I think it's one that we're going to have to answer because I don't think that the wide receiver order goes chalk on draft night.
Right.
I think there's going to be some pretty big surprises in terms of the order that the wide receivers are taken.
I agree.
All right. Well, on that subject, we're really working in tandem here because we're sticking with wide receivers for my honey barbecue prediction as well. However, mine is about Tetairoa McMillan. And I think that McMillan's floor in this draft is pick 12.
Okay. All right. I like that.
I don't think that this whole like second wave of McMillan is falling. He's going in the 20s now. I just don't buy it. And I do this every year, and sometimes I'm wrong. Like I was wrong about Drake May and not buying the fact that he wasn't going at pick 2. I just don't understand what happened between when McMillan was the guy from a consensus, like widely viewed idea to where we are today, where, in my opinion, not really anything has changed since that point in time. And I still think McMillan is, on a pure receiver basis, the best receiver in the draft today. We had the Travis Hunter conversation last week. That's always going to be a little bit of a, that's always going to be kind of a mystery box situation where it's like, what Travis Hunter are you going to get? You know exactly what you're getting with McMillan because he's just a wide receiver, and that's all it is. So I think, to me, he still is the best one in the class. I think he very well can still go in the top 10 of this draft. But I think 12 is the floor because when you talked about McMillan pairing up with CeeDee Lamb last week, I think it was, that really planted a seed in my mind where it was like, how could the Cowboys pass?
Right.
Like if he fell to them, how could they pass? Because he is exactly what they need. Wide receiver 2 is a desperate need. And to have a guy like McMillan as your wide receiver 2, like completing the T. Higgins comp trajectory of like him being the number 2 to like it would be such a perfect situation for Dallas if it happened that way. So I don't see how they'd pass, and I think that's where the buck stops with him.
No, it works against my honey barbecue take because I don't think Igbuka's going higher than that. But I do still like the idea of like McMillan. Why are we overthinking this? Like that's the real thing that I like have with this, the whole draft build up and process, and like all of my takes could be the same as they were 2 months ago. Like that's how I kind of feel because nothing on tape has changed. The player is still the player. The only thing you've seen is the Senior Bowl and the Combine and like whatever Pro Days, Shrine Bowl, lump that all in with it. And how much does that change your evaluation? I don't know, but it hasn't changed the fact that Tetairoa McMillan is awesome and like why and should be the wide receiver 1 in this class. And like you start getting closer, and I talk about it a lot with like analysts start to learn more. They start to talk to GMs and scouts more, and maybe they are reporters, not analysts, but they start to glean a little more information. And then you start to like hear that information. It's like, well, that doesn't sound right, but maybe that's just what it is. And so while I agree that I don't think McMillan should be lower than he is to us and like to where he was earlier, maybe that's just what people are hearing, and that's what it's going to end up being. But I don't know. I don't super buy it either.
What's really interesting about this draft in terms of the like mock draft reporter analysts sort of deal is like DJ is typically the most plugged in guy, or at least one of them. And I feel like this year I've noticed more than most years the mocks that DJ is putting out and the mocks that you're getting from like the other like reputable top names in the industry are pretty different. Like DJ's mocks have kind of been off the beaten path in terms of the rest of what everybody else is saying. So if DJ has this, intel that we all assume that he has when he's putting together a mock draft, is he the one that's like reading the situation correctly and everybody else is wrong? Or is he just like kind of throwing some stuff out there in the early process to like get some NFL.com clicks, and then we're going to get the real mock at the draft week from him? But so that's just an interesting part, because I'm still seeing McMillan going high in like a fair amount of mock drafts. It's just DJ's at 23, that one, or 22, that one spoke volumes to me.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a little bit of that too, where at the end of the day, we're all content creators too, and you got to drive people to your articles to make money. So I won't knock a hustle.
Yeah. Amen. All right. So we're finally graduating into some real spice at this point. We're heading to my favorite stop on the journey, the classic buffalo wing. No matter if you like it mild, medium, or hot, it's all about the flavor here with the buffalo wing. So what do you have for your buffalo prediction?
My buffalo prediction is that we are going to get 12 running backs on day 2. So what does that mean? Well, I'm going to name them for you. That's what's going to make this a take. So we had 3 running backs go in the first round in this scenario. We had Omarion, we had Genty, we had Travion. So then on day 2, we're going to get Caleb Johnson. We're going to get Quinshon Judkins. We're going to get Devin Neal, Cam Scadaboo, Dylan Sampson, Trevor Etienne, Bashal Tootin, Damian Martinez, DJ Giddens, Jaden Blue, Taj Brooks, and Ollie Gordon.
Wow.
There we go. That's a take for you right there.
So I was crafting a running back take similar to this that I ended up giving up on. But did you know that the most running backs selected in the top 50 since 2018 is 3?
In the top 50 is 3?
I think I worded that really poorly.
No, I get you. I'm with you.
You got it? Okay.
Yeah. So the most running backs in top 50 is 3, which is surprising.
Yeah, that's happened multiple times. You'd have to go all the way back to 2018 when there were 6. That was the last time we had more than 3. So I was thinking to myself, man, I think we're going to have more than 3 this year. For sure.
Yeah.
But 12 on days 1 and 2.
No, I'd have 12's on day 2. 15 across the 2.
15 altogether.
Would be on day 2, because we had 3 on day 1, and then we'd have 12 on day 2, just in rounds 2 and 3.
So 15 in the first,
the first 3 rounds.
Roughly 100 picks ish. That would be insane.
It's
but
so
also
many. That's the class.
Get them while you can.
Right. This is the running back revolution is what we're going to call this draft, I think. I think I'm branding it right now without your permission. So where everybody is going to get their next running back in this draft, and like a team's going to in this scenario, because there are guys that are mocked outside of round 3, which is why this is, Buffalo has a little bit of spice to it. So like you got to take a chance on Ollie Gordon after he had a bad year last year. You got to take a little bit of a chance on like Trevor Etienne, who's a great athlete, but like he's kind of been a weird prospect throughout his entire college career. Devin Neal, who's consistently mocked in like the 4th or 5th round. Like it's a guy that has a lot of production, but maybe has some athleticism questions. And so there's definitely a lot of guys that would need to jump a little bit in their draft order, but a lot of these guys are really talented with a lot of green flags too. I think that's another thing about this class is these guys might have a few red flags here and there, but there's also like incredible upside with a lot of these players.
I mean, one of the most compelling stories from this draft will be how many running backs go and where do they go? Because what you're calling the running back revolution?
That's right.
It's so real because this class is coinciding with the return of like the run game in the NFL. Like what we've seen this re-emphasis placed on the run game. We've seen the 49ers go out and grab Christian McCaffrey. We've seen the Eagles go out and pay Saquon.
We're drafting and paying guards a lot of money.
Right. We're bolstering the interior of the offensive line, and we're spending high draft capital again on running backs. We saw it 2 years ago. We're going to see it again this year. So it makes for a perfect storm that this running back class comes along right at a point in time where running is emphasized and a lot of teams need running back help. Maybe not an RB1, but certainly an RB2. I think there's a lot of teams that would fit into that category of either needing a starter or needing that change of pace guy to go along with a starter. So it's going to be really exciting to see how it unfolds. And honestly, there's names even in the 15 that you listed. There's names beyond that where it's like, oh, I don't think X is going on day 2. It's like, well, what about that guy? Because I could see him doing that. And there's probably 20 of those guys total. So
yeah, I know. I was looking at the list and I left some guys off like Jordan James, Brashard Smith, like LaKent Allen, like people like. So there are other guys that are. Donovan Edwards, who an NFL team might take a chance on.
Did you have RJ Harvey in your 15?
RJ Harvey is right there also. Yeah. Like so that's what I'm saying is there's plenty of names in this class, plenty of guys in this class. Manungai and whatever. So there's other guys if you're like, yeah, there's no chance, Jaden Blue is the 3rd rounder. Well, then maybe RJ Harvey is.
Yeah, exactly. All right. My Buffalo take. We did it again. We're staying on running back, and I am directly going against something that you just said.
Okay.
Cam Skattebo. I would consider myself a Scattabro.
Boo.
So me and the Scattabros are going to be pretty upset and confused when Cam Skattebo falls to the 5th round in the NFL draft.
That would hurt the Skattebo hive. What's going on there?
So obviously this is a Buffalo prediction, and so there's a little bit of spice here, but I think Skattebo is not a player that I feel like anybody has a great read on what the NFL thinks about him. He's not really a name that's getting, he's not getting talked about really in amongst like big media. He had his brief moment at the combine where he jumped and kind of excited people, and then he was gone, and then he ran a 4.6, and then he was pissed again. I think in this scenario, for Skattebo to fall to the 5th, I think it's a product of what you just talked about, which is how deep the class is. B, how athletic the running back class is. And the fact that Skattebo will be 23 when he's drafted and has taken a fair amount of abuse over the course of his college career. He's been, a starting running back for 4 years. He is a physical, lower the shoulder, don't shy away from contact runner. I could see the NFL saying we have a running back that's already taken a beating. He's not very athletic as a complete package. He's not offering us dynamic speed, at least. And he is a little bit older. So maybe he gets discounted on draft day. And when that happens, I think it's gonna piss a lot of people off. But I think we've seen stuff like this happen before with these sort of like fan favorite almost running backs that just get docked in the draft process. And it's not even because the NFL doesn't think they're good players. I'm thinking back to like Kyron Williams, where it was just like, we like him, but we're not going to take him before a certain point. And I think Scadaboo could be a player that gets labeled that way.
So Cam Scadaboo as Kyron Williams is the take. I think even if that happens, you're going to have the Scadabros like coping with it and being like, who cares? I'll still take him because I still love him. And now I get him at a discount because everybody in my league is not going to take a guy that got drafted in the 5th round. That being said, like, I think he has enough tools to like get drafted higher. And like, that's not what the take is about. That we're living in the world of now he did go in the 5th round. Now what does that do to his dynasty draft status? And I think that like we've kind of mentioned this with Scadaboo here and there as we've talked about him. It's like you probably either like him or you don't. And if you did like him and he went in the 5th round, it's not going to change a ton for you. Like maybe it allows you to let him fall further. I think that's the one thing. Maybe you can trade back and get him. But I don't think anybody that didn't like him is going to be like, oh, yeah, he's a 5th rounder. Like, cool, whatever. Now, the other world that we live in is there's a lot of casual players that sit and play this game and, like, tune in during the draft and during their rookie draft and maybe do, an hour of research beforehand. I think those are the people that are, just going to take them completely off their board. I think that's what him going in the 5th round would do.
Yeah, that was part of the reason I wanted to bring this to the table. And it's not just me saying, let's have a hypothetical conversation. Like, I genuinely believe this could happen. Mm-hmm. And part of me is like, what happens when it does happen? Like, right. Because I feel like, to go back to the Kyron Williams example, like Kyron Williams was a running back that was widely liked, I think, pre-draft by a lot of people. Like, he was a sort of like, if you were grinding the film up to the draft, you might have walked away thinking, oh man, Kyron Williams is like one of the best running backs in this class. And then when the fall happens, it's like, I feel like, and for good reason, we tend to just shut our brain off and say, well, it's over. Like, there's no chance that he could overcome this. Like, the NFL is not going to prioritize giving him touches. He clearly is not, a priority for them long term moving forward. And sometimes it's literally just a matter of, yeah, he just didn't have the athleticism for anybody to want to roll the dice before this point. Kyron Williams, I mean, he was a poor tester and was very small. And look what happened. He filled a role and he has become a critical piece for this Rams team, and he's become a fantasy superstar. Mm-hmm. Not saying that Cam Scadaboo is like, we're going to follow the same trajectory to a T. I'm just saying he is the sort of running back that if he goes later in the draft than you're like comfortable with, where you're kind of like, oh my God, what happened? He's the sort of running back where I'm almost willing to overlook that more than like an athletic project-y guy that fell. Like when Zach Evans fell. It was right. Like, well, it's over. Like, they're not going to.
And he was supposed to steal Kyron Williams' spot. And then exactly. Blake Corum was supposed to steal Kyron Williams' spot. So Scadaboo will just also have to survive everybody that gets drafted after him trying to, and all the Dynasty people being like, oh, that guy was a 3rd-round pick, so it's over for Scadaboo.
That being said, NFL, do the right thing. Draft him in the 3rd round. All right. Also, I just realized I messed this up. So I'm going to be adjusting my I flipped my Buffalo and my Thai curries. So,
okay.
But it's okay. I'm going to dial up my Buffalo and make it a Thai curry. So there we go.
All right.
But you're up first.
I'm up with my Thai curry. 4 quarterbacks in the 1st round.
Bang.
There it is. So, yeah, we've been preaching that there shouldn't be 2 quarterbacks in the 1st round, maybe, or 1 quarterback up at the top and then another one towards the bottom of the 1st round. I'm going to push all the way against that. And that's for a reason. I'm not just saying shit to say shit. We've been hearing a lot of smoke about Jalen Milroe lately. And Jalen Milroe, as you know, if you've been listening for a while, you might not if you haven't been, is like a very kind of temperamental piece of this show where he's been the product of a lot of discussion over the last year, where mid-season maybe we were all in, and then end of season we were like, oh, there's still a chance, the testing and the Senior Bowl and Pro Day, whatever, and then he doesn't really do any testing, and then he kind of shits the bed at the Senior Bowl, and the Pro Day numbers come out, but who cares at that point? Because like they're all pretty fabricated anyway. So now we come into the draft, and you start hearing stuff about Jalen Milroe, and you kind of question why, when everything postseason has been kind of disappointing, frankly. And the end of the season was also disappointing. So maybe there's a reason. And then also the media favorite Jackson Dart has also been like touted in top 3s at some point, because if Cam Ward goes 1 and Shedeur goes 2, the Giants are not going to just pass on quarterback. And now at this point that they have Russ and Jameis, I think they do. But I think that's true for some teams, that like they can't just take a gap year, and like maybe front offices are on a time clock, and head coaches and GMs and executives all want to keep their job, and getting a rookie quarterback in place extends your timeline by at least a year or 2, because you can pitch to higher up people, hey, give me some time. It's a rookie, he needs to develop, but whatever. And people love Jackson Dart. So I think that, we get Cam Ward and Shedeur early, and then you get, Jackson Dart not too far after, and then someone taking a shot on Jalen Milroe, who doesn't really have, maybe like a Steelers kind of team that doesn't have a quarterback in place and like just needs to take a risk and then sign, Aaron Rodgers or whatever for a year or 2 while you try to develop this very project-y quarterback, whether it is Dart or Milroe.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen this happen before. I mean, how many times have we seen this happen before, where it's like the quarterback class seems a little bit questionable, and then teams are just grabbing and trying to get something out of, a bunch of maybe nothing. But in this case, I think if Shedeur goes, like, let's say he goes 3, like Ward goes 1, the Giants pull the trigger at 3, then I think that opens the door for some shenanigans to happen. Absolutely.
Right.
Because like it is teams like the Steelers at 21 that literally have not addressed the quarterback spot. Like they need something. And I don't know if that's going to be Aaron Rodgers for the short term or not, but
New Orleans at 9.
Yeah, I mean, like we could go all the way up the draft board and like who's going to be the shocking quarterback. And I think last year I felt shocked at what happened. I think the NFL proved that it was smarter than me last year when it decided to take Bo Nix as a high pick in the draft, and Bo Nix was a good player, and JJ McCarthy is still TBD. But that was shocking. Yeah, Penix was like, and as somebody who loved Penix and was like lobbying for him to go in the middle of the first,
it was crazy.
Even 8 was like insane to me. So, but for the most part, I mean, things are off to a promising start from that, from last year's class, which was, phenomenal and much, much different than this year's quarterback group. But I think the doorway is open for shenanigans to happen with the number of teams that either need help desperately or need something more than what they have, some sort of promise to the future. And I think you have teams like that at the top of the second that would, again, be willing to jump up potentially and get a guy at the very end of round 1.
Yep.
All right, we're going to talk about quarterbacks later, but I can't smooth segue this because I've already...
You will be able to. Don't worry.
Ooh,
there you
whoa.
go. It's a tease.
All right, so what was my Buffalo take is now becoming my Ty Curry take. Luther Burden III. The Buffalo version of this take was that he was going to be a first-round pick.
Okay.
The Ty Curry version of this take is that he goes top 25.
Okay. I hope so. I love Luther Burden.
I mean, it's just, I could really see this going both ways because I have flashbacks to A.D. Mitchell when there were like some quote unquote character concerns and effort concerns that popped up with him. And then suddenly he fell into the late part of the second round. And that felt shocking last year because we loved A.D. Mitchell and we expected him to potentially, at least flirt with being a first round selection. And then he falls all the way down. Chris Ballard has the tirade about why are we saying he's as low character. I think Burden is getting some of the same treatment this year, which leads me to wonder, like, is he going to be in for like a huge fall compared to what we are expecting even now, where it's like kind of consensus that he will not be a first round pick, or at least it's starting to appear that way. In this case, I am just choosing to ignore all of that noise and think that the NFL will still choose to prioritize the rare qualities that Luther Burden has, especially in a wide receiver group like this one, which is so wide open after a certain point, at least. Like, I feel like when we're talking about names like Igbuka and even Matthew Golden, if he's in this conversation, like, we gotta have Luther Burden in that conversation, man. Like, there's no reason that Luther Burden does not belong on the same plane as those guys. And if this draft is as wide open as it feels like it is, and really like all bets are off on who goes where, what's stopping Luther Burden from enticing the Texans at 25 or, our former the perfect match, the Broncos at 20? I mean, like, there are no shortage of teams in that range of the draft that not only need a wide receiver, but need a playmaker at wide receiver. And so I think Burden is naturally the player that can fill that role.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I am very pro Burden. I think like there's a lot of shift that has happened on Burden, especially because of this season. I remember back, and I know it's hard to have a long-term memory with like the fantasy world and Dynasty, but I remember before this season, Luther Burden being like the way too early mock drafts. I know that you read them, I know that you watched them, and Luther Burden's going like top 10. He's the wide receiver one. Patriots fans are like, give us Luther Burden. I saw that on Twitter. Like, I remember all of this being a thing, and now like he's an afterthought in this wide receiver class. The wide receiver class isn't good enough for him to be an afterthought. That's the thing. Like, we are not in a position where we have even like, JSN and Quentin Johnson and Zay Flowers. Like, we don't have that plethora of talent in this class. We have McMillan and we have Travis Hunter. And then like Egbuka and Matthew Golden and Burden, who should all be in the same clump. Like we shouldn't be talking about these guys way above where Burden is, because that's just not the talent that they have. We can't afford to just like cast him aside. So I think that this is very much in the cards of like a team seeing a guy and being like, yeah, we can give this guy, 7-8 touches a game because he's so dynamic with the ball in his hands. All we got to do is refine the technique a little bit and we'll have a dynamic, 1B number 2 guy in our offense. So I'm all in.
It's just crazy how this has unfolded. I'm pretty sure, I'm almost positive that I saw a mock draft from a real person before the season where Luther Burden was going first overall. And
yeah,
like
that's real though. Like that's 100% a real thing where he, before this year, was the odds-on favorite to win the Biletnikoff. Also, like this is the guy that was supposed to be, we talked about like Malik Neighbors, have that kind of ascendance into the top tier of this class.
And I remember at the time thinking, oh my God, like this is insane. I feel like I am way too low on him. Like everybody else is saying he's a top 5 pick. And I'm like, I don't see that on film. And I felt a little crazy at the time. And now I feel crazy that people that he's falling out of the first, like the entire pendulum has swung and I've just been like in the middle this entire time.
Right.
Like, yeah, he's like a 15 to 25 sort of player. And now it's just like, can we get him in the first 52 round?
Yeah.
Yeah. But all right. Luther Burden, top 25. And now we are on the real hot stuff. This is the kind of wing that I'm probably not ordering under any circumstance. Like I've tried a mango habanero wing and I don't need to do it again. I enjoyed the 2 seconds that it was like a good flavor and then I couldn't breathe. So let's light it on fire. What is your mango habanero take?
My mango habanero take is Shedeur is the first quarterback taken.
Oh, yes.
There we go. Okay, so today is April 7th, if you guys are listening in the future. And a article came out today saying that the Titans will not be conducting a private workout with Colorado quarterback Shedeur Sanders. And it's like, oh, well, it's over. That means Cam Ward is going to be the number 1 pick. I'm here to spin that and say they were so impressed with Shedeur and Sanders' camp at his pro day that they lock it in that day that they're taking Shedeur Sanders number 1 overall. That they are all in on Shedeur, and they're like, we didn't love what we saw out of Cam Ward. We didn't love the interviews at his pro day. We bring him, we'll bring him back for another workout in the future. But right now, our eyes are set on the future of our franchise, Shedeur Sanders. And now we have an in to change our coach after a couple of years if it's not going well and get Deion Sanders in here down the road. Because Shedeur, as much as we have questions about him as a prospect, is like a star right now. He legitimately is a star. We felt it at the combine. Like there's a magnetism to Shedeur and like a vibe. Aura is a good way to describe it. I know it's kind of a taboo thing to say right now, but like he has aura. He has like where he walks in a room, he commands a room. So if there's a world where this happens, I think it's this one.
I love it. And also, I will eat a mango habanero wing on this show if this happens.
I'm going to hold you to that.
Yes, please do.
Yeah.
Please do. Because I always root for chaos in all forms. It it really feels like we have arrived at a point where it's like, it's not even, I thought it was at least going to be fun leading up to the draft week of like, will they take Travis Hunter? Which quarterback will they take? Maybe they'll take Carter. And it feels like it's April 7th and it's like Cam Ward's going first overall. Cool. But maybe you're right. Maybe it is. Maybe we're all getting swerved. Maybe the Titans are long gaming this thing and they're going to trade down for a team that trade down for Cam Ward, and a team's going to jump up and take Travis Hunter first overall. I don't know.
Who knows?
All right. Well, we're sticking on quarterbacks. Mango Habanero. So you got Shedeur going first overall. How about first pick of the second round? Jalen Milroe is selected by the Cleveland Browns 33rd overall.
Ooh, okay. Because they passed on him in the first round to get Abdul Carter.
Yes.
Or Travis Hunter. Right.
But so you have already sort of outlined this. This was born from the report that he will be attending the draft. And I can totally see him sneaking into the first round. Like, I don't think that like him accepting the invite is like necessarily a Will Levis sort of deal where it's like, he's not actually going in the first though.
How many shots of Jalen Milroe and his girlfriend can we get in the green room?
But I still don't think he ends up in round one. However, a week ago, saying Jalen Milroe is going 33rd, you might get a dirty look saying that. Like 3 months ago, you wouldn't have.
Right.
3 months ago, it might have been he's going third overall to the Browns, right? Or second overall to the Browns, right? In this case, it's no, but he is going to make it right away. First pick after round one. I think, well, yes, this is Mango Habanero, and yes, it's probably still unlikely to happen. I do think that the Browns, given their current situation and given the fact that they do not appear to have any interest, at least as far as we know, in taking Shedeur Sanders at 2 overall, and kind of reading the tea leaves with like the Dorian Thompson-Robinson experiment that they had, where they kind of took him late, but then trotted him out there and like gave him a chance as a player that's like Milroe, but like Milroe is just the like evolved version of what you're getting with Dorian Thompson-Robinson. So maybe they see something in the player there. Maybe they think he can be the guy that develops, in this, what is a toxic environment in that quarterback room, but maybe they're the team that rolls the dice on him.
Yeah, I think that this is a pretty valid take if the Browns forego quarterback early. I don't know if they will because, that's the way the business works is like you need a quarterback to compete. But there's got to be something to like, why is Milroe showing up? And like you said, it doesn't necessarily have to mean that he's going to be a first rounder. Like I was pitching earlier, like he could, like Will Levis, end up being just the top of the second round, get this day 2 started and get our quarterback in the building and see what we can do with him. So yeah, Jalen Milroe, something's up with Jalen Milroe.
It just felt like we had gotten to a point where the world was all the way out on Jalen Milroe.
And now we're right back.
And I've always stayed in the door frame. Like I've never, I didn't want to take that first step out quite yet. I'm just hovering by the door, like hanging on to the door frame. Like, please
give me
a reason to stay. And now I feel like I have that reason.
Right.
So why not 33? All right. By the way, and for fantasy purposes, I put him right back in that conversation. No matter what you think about him going that high and with his skill set, I mean, we might have a weird conversation if we get back into super flex conversations at some point in time. But All right. It has all led up to this. This is my favorite part of this episode. It's diabolical. It's insane. It's impossible until it isn't. And that is the Diablo prediction. The so hot that you can't breathe. Your tongue is swollen. You're rolling around on the ground. So lay it on me. What do you got?
The Jets trade up to number 2 to select their quarterback. And how do they do this? This is the Diablo take. They trade 7 1/3 for Deshaun Watson and number 2. So in this world, the Jets are taking on the Deshaun Watson contract, and that's the big trade piece on top of, the number 2 pick. And they're giving the Browns cap relief, which lets them move back down to 7. And then maybe they take Jackson Dart at 7, or whatever. But like the Jets make this move of saying like, fuck it, we'll take Watson's contract if it can get us up to 2.
What about Justin Fields?
What about him?
Well, they're paying him how much? So we're going to have Watson's contract, we're going to have Fields' contract, and
number 2.
Are they taking a quarterback at number 2?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I love it. The carnage.
Yeah, the Jets are just like, we need a quarterback. We're going to figure it out one way or another. And like, if we can get up to number 2 and we can get, Shedeur Sanders up in New York, the bright lights, we have a guy, we'll take, Deshaun, put him out back. He'll never suit up. We don't even want him showing up for games. Like, I don't care. And then we have Justin Fields until Shedeur's ready to play is basically where we're at.
I want this to happen so badly just to see what Jets fans would do.
Yeah. Just be like, what are we doing?
I think MetLife Stadium would get burned to the ground on draft night if this happened. And I want to see it, honestly.
So do I. And like, also Cleveland probably be like, okay, we got rid of Deshaun, but at what cost? Yeah. Like now we are at the 7 pick. So that's, maybe not happening, but that's what makes this Diablo.
So one part of this is very interesting, and it's something that hasn't been talked about really at all as far as I've seen, which is the Jets drafting a quarterback, period. Because it feels like right now that Shedeur is going to be on the board at 7. That's the general vibe that I get from what is happening. Maybe that's wrong, and maybe that's all along it was Shedeur at 3 or whatever. But like, if he was there at 7, and he is in many mock drafts that I've seen and listened to, and it never seems to come up that the Jets would entertain the idea of taking him, which to me seems very weird, because I get that you just paid Justin Fields, but like, it's Justin Fields. And right. I get that it's Shedeur, but like, it's Justin Fields.
I know.
Like,
that's why I wanted to figure out a way for the Browns or the Jets to get into, quote unquote, like quarterback range. And like, maybe they could stay put and get them regardless. But where you are in the Justin Fields business and like you have their roster is like pretty good. Like, I think we all have agreed for years that they are a quarterback away. Rodgers wasn't the guy. He was, fine. He was about league average as a quarterback, and like, it didn't get it done. And like, Justin Fields, is he a ton of an upgrade over 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers with a blown Achilles? Like, athletically, yeah, but like as a quarterback of an offense, I don't know. Because we just saw the Steelers take Russell Wilson over him, and Russell Wilson wasn't that good. So I just don't believe that they think Fields is the long-term answer there. Whether I'm right or not, to be determined. Like, I have always kind of liked Fields, and I've always given him the benefit of the doubt. But you kind of, maybe you just land in the right spot like Sam Darnold, and you hit. and like it works. I just don't think that the Jets are the right spot.
Yeah, that's the Jets, man. I
Jets.
don't understand why that the noise about them taking a quarterback has not gotten louder yet at this point, but
we're starting here right now.
Yeah, we're starting right here. Deshaun Watson and Shedeur Sanders and Justin Fields, triple threat match. Winner gets the starting quarterback job.
Maybe the real take would have been the Jets put Fields in this deal.
All right. Well, we're cooking up more trades with my Diablo prediction. So we started this conversation. Lemon Pepper, Ashton Genty goes top 10. And I said, probably not close to 10. That is because a team is going to trade up for Ashton Genty in this draft. And that team is the Chicago Bears.
Okay.
The Chicago Bears will move from pick 10 to pick 5.
Okay.
So they're jumping the Raiders.
Yeah.
They are getting ahead of the Raiders. They are not taking any chances. The Jags, who currently sit at 5, in this scenario, Travis Hunter was gone.
Sure.
And it felt like there's 6 players they could take here and be happy. Let's move back. And the Bears have the 2 early second round picks that we've talked about quite a bit. And in this case, it only takes 1 to get up the 5 spots. It's 10 and 39 for 5. And then they're going to get a 4th back from the Jags. So you still have 41 in your back pocket. You got a pick back from the Jags, which according to the value chart, like that works out. Maybe the Jags play hardball and give them a later pick. Either way, it doesn't really matter. I think this is a very realistic scenario from both angles, with the Bears wanting to secure Genty and the Jags being comfortable to move back. And in this case, not only are the Bears getting Genty at 5, the Jags trade back and get Tyler Warren at pick 10, which to me is an all around fantasy fireworks dynamite explosion trade.
It's all coming together.
It all comes together because I still maintain that Ashton Genty to the Bears is as close to a no doubt home run that you can get. And Tyler Warren moving into that Evan Engram situation with the Jags feels also like a absolute home run for him in the long term as well. So this is a trade that I think makes a lot of sense. And also I'm now desperate for it to happen.
I like this a lot. It's a lot more fun than my trade.
Yours I think is more fun.
Well, maybe mine's a little more chaotic. Yours is a better for fantasy, that's for sure. If it's not Chicago, I could see like another team doing this, where you hear a lot of maybe the Raiders just take Genty at 6. And he's a good enough player to take at 5, so I don't see why not. How many assets do you want to pump into the running back position? That's the only question that I think comes up is like, do I want to throw, a first and a second into running back and like get a 5th back or whatever from the Jags, or a 4th back? And when it's this kind of player, yeah, you do, I'd say. But Chicago could do this. Dallas could do this, I think, is the other one where they're sitting at 12. They throw their second round pick in and maybe get like a 5th or a 6th back because their second round pick is later, and they jump up to 5 because they don't want Chicago or Vegas to get Genty. So I think there's a lot of different, permutations of this kind of trade, but I would love to see Chicago pull something like this off and kind of like slot the quote unquote like finishing piece to their skill position group with the wide receivers they've collected, and then they've done some really good stuff to their offensive line, and then Ben Johnson, and let these wheels get going with this, potential very scary offense.
Yeah, I thought about the Cowboys as well, and I looked at like what ammunition they have to pull that off, and it just, to me, it's like the Bears with 39 and 41 have this advantage where if they want to get aggressive, they absolutely can, and they wouldn't even. If I'm them, I'm not feeling bad about it.
Yes.
Because like if you're sitting at 10, you could get Genty at 10, or you get sniped. Do you want to take Hampton at 10? Probably not. And then at that point, you're going to probably default to taking one at either 39 or 41. So why not just spend that pick now, get up, secure your guy. We still have an early second. We're getting a later pick back. They have their third. So it's like you still have a first, a second, a third, a fourth, like their draft is still complete with this trade. And I think what you just said is exactly why it should happen.
Yeah.
It's the finishing piece. They have made the investments on the offensive line that has been the breadcrumb trail that has led people to believe that they are seriously interested in taking Genty at 10 if he were to fall to them. Why even mess around? Get Ben Johnson, this elite talent, to pair with his elite talent at quarterback and the potentially elite talent they just drafted at wide receiver. Suddenly this offense has been completely transformed in 2 draft cycles, and you're going to move forward with one of the most creative offensive minds in the sport. I mean, it's absolutely best case scenario and a perfect situation for Chicago.
Also, just get your offensive coordinator toys to play with.
Yes.
I think that's another thing where like you have, or your head coach in this case, your play caller,
right?
Where you are trying to, like, maybe he asked for this when he's like, if you give me the head coach job, like, let me have like decision-making power, like veto power, essentially, in the draft of like, if I love somebody, you have to take them, like that kind of thing. Maybe not, but if that's the case, I don't see why you wouldn't be like, I want Genty.
Well, there it is. I'm full. My mouth is on fire. I'm ordering an extra cup of ranch to just drink.
Ice cream?
Yeah, vanilla ice cream.
Gordon Ramsay trick of citrus?
Ooh, is that real?
Lemon juice, apparently.
Oh, I've never heard of
that. I feel like it would really hurt worse.
Yeah, I don't see how that works, but
I don't either.
Gordon Ramsay, he must know.
He knows a thing or two. I think it's because it's an oil that capsaicin isn't. It's capsaicin, right?
Yeah.
That's an oil, and the citrus breaks it down, and because it's an acid. A little bit of chemistry.
There it is. You stay to the end of the episode, you get a free chemistry lesson. Look at that. All right, well, that is spicy draft predictions. Honestly, I think we had some gems in the mix today. I think some of these, maybe many of these, likely to happen.
I think all of them are going to happen.
Yeah. 2.5 weeks.
Why have a take if it's not going to happen?
Yeah. I'm going to have to edit this back and put a spoiler warning at the front. Be like, if you want to keep the NFL draft a surprise, do not listen to this podcast.
That's right.
But in all seriousness, 2.5 weeks from right now, we will get all of the answers that we are seeking in terms of where these players will be playing, where they will be drafted, which rounds, which days of the draft. I mean, everything is really on the table after a certain point. And even then, we still don't know, even all the way to the top of the draft. Tedero McMillan, we're talking about, where is he going to go in the first round? And so plenty of intrigue, plenty of mystery this year. And that's going to make for a very exciting and unpredictable first round. I just started playing around, actually, because of this episode, I started playing around in the mock draft simulator and started thinking about what do I think makes sense in the draft. And after pick 4, I was already like, meh, I don't know what's happening. I'm going to trade down to 10 and pick Ashton Genty.
No, that's seriously where I'm at also with this draft is I don't know what the hell is going on. in general. I feel like there's usually so much intel out there that, top whatever, how many picks end up being almost, about them beforehand. Like, you're like, oh, yep, pick one's going to be this person. Pick one's going to be Caleb Williams. Pick two is going to be this guy. Pick two is going to be Jaden. 3 is going to be May. 4 is going to be, and you just kind of go.
You feel some semblance of confidence.
Yeah. In this one, it's like, I don't know if like Cam Ward's going to go 1. Like, once he does, like, it'll be like, oh yeah, obviously. But there's a world where Abdul Carter goes 1, where Travis Hunter goes 1, where Shedeur goes 1. Like, I don't think that it's out of the realm of possibilities, even though it's unlikely.
Yeah.
And then at number 2, it's completely up in the air. So I think that there's like so much uncertainty where maybe you'll look back and be like, well, that's what always was going to happen. But it doesn't feel like that right now.
No, definitely does not. And even if we do assume that Cam Ward is in fact going number 1, like you just said, number 2, I mean, until we hear otherwise, is completely up in the air, completely wide open. I think offensive tackle, like offensive linemen are like something where I feel like you hear a different name at the top every time you look at a draft and think about
There's no Joe Alt. There's no, I mean, like
Nope.
Will Campbell was a guy, but with the arm length questions of like, is he going to get bumped to guard? It's kind of like Skoronski, where he was a really good tackle prospect, but ended up being bumped into guard. And so he goes 13 or whatever. He went to the Titans. So like, is that a similar scenario with Campbell of like, is he going to fall and somebody else is going to pop up and take the spot? Who knows?
You know what nobody is talking about? The fact that Will Campbell was like unanimously mocked to the Patriots at one point, and now Mike Vrabel is the head coach of the Patriots. And am I correct? Was that 2 years ago when they took Skoronski?
Oh, that's a good question. Let me look it up quick.
Because Mike Vrabel was the head coach at that point in time.
2023, yeah, 2 years ago.
So they clearly didn't have an issue with the player at that with a short arm length tackle at that point in time. So just
or maybe
saying.
he learned from it and said, I don't want to do that again. That was my.
God damn it! I thought I cracked the code. Now... All right. Well, if you enjoyed our exploration of potential draft day scenarios, draft weekend scenarios on Spicy Predictions, be sure to find us on Twitter, camp_dynasty, and TikTok at camp.dynasty. And if you're on YouTube, be sure to hit subscribe and like before you leave. We very much appreciate it. It helps us a lot, of course. And then also, if you are on the pod feed, make sure to follow, rate, review, subscribe, share, all of those podcasty things as well, because that helps us a lot too. The more times you hit subscribe or follow or rate,
engage with the channel.
Yeah.
The more times you engage with the channel, the more you tell the artificial intelligence that pushes people's videos to people's feeds, the more we get that treatment of, hey, what should you watch next? How about Camp Dynasty? And someone's like, oh, what the hell is that? It's because you pressed like.
These yahoos are talking about the 2026 draft players in June. I'm in. Damn it.
In.
And next week, it's about to get very, very real. You're going to want to be here for this one because we are talking final pre-draft dynasty rankings. I have not decided on a number yet. I forgot what we did last year. We will do 48 post-draft, maybe 24 next week. Feels like a solid number.
That feels right.
I have my final list of names that I need to watch leading up till that episode, and then I am basically done watching film for the year. So what a ride it has been. There's going to be some fun little takes, I think, that come out next week. Players that we haven't really gotten to talk much about that I've watched over the last month or so. So it's going to be a great time.
Then it's on to 2026.
And
where we start.
Yeah, we're not too far away at this point, honestly.
You stop watching tape of the 2025 guys, and all of a sudden you're watching 2026 guys and you're like, how the hell did this happen?
Somehow it is really not that far away. So, but we got plenty of fun left to have with our 2025 crew. So thanks for stopping by Camp Dynasty this week, and we'll see you next week.